G'day, I'm Scott Mayman from mynewsfeed.com.au. This is another Ask A Pollie interview, and our special guest today, David Crisafulli, the leader of the opposition for Queensland. Thanks for your time.
Asking a Pollie, surely that doesn't rate well, eh? Who wants to know about a Pollie?
Well, this is the personal side of asking what the politician is all about, more than just, the policies and so forth, but more about you. And may I say, for a person who wants to become Premier, thank you for your time, because at the time of this interview being recorded, the Premier's office had said no, a blanket no to an interview, and no reasons are given. And despite our multiple requests to ask why, is there a format or something we have to go through? No reasons are given.
Well, I'm not the style of person who throws rocks for no reason. That's a matter for her, but I love doing this stuff. Yeah. I really do, because it's an opportunity for people to look at us. And when I say us, I mean across the political divide. People look at politicians and think, these people are strange, and we are, going into something like that. But I like doing this, and there are good people on both sides of politics. And when you do different things, I once gave my famous spaghetti bolognese recipe on a radio show in the kitchen, cooking it up, and I got more positive feedback about that than any policies.
Well, that's the kind of thing we're looking for, just something different.
Well, I'm not going to give you the recipe.
It's a family secret.
Well, I got in trouble from Mum and Nonna for giving it out, so never again.
Well, let's talk about your mum for a while and your family background. Now, you pretty much grew up in North Queensland before entering politics, a journalist with a local paper and also Win Television. How did you make that transition from journalism to politics?
I really got sick of my local council, if I'm being frank, and I thought this just seemed like a cabal, like it's a closed shop, and I decided to run for what was a very, very political council, and in fact they were endorsed politics, which doesn't normally happen in local government. Normally local government people might have political views, but they don't go in as endorsed. This was a 100% Labor Party council, and I sort of just got sick of some of the behaviour, and I decided to run. And people said, oh look, you're not going to win, but it'll be a good experience for you. And I just door knocked and went around and met people, and I jagged a seat, and it's like a dog that caught the car. Okay, all right, got it. What am I going to do? And that developed my interest in politics. And from there, I did a couple of terms on council, and then I became the deputy mayor and got into state politics. And look, I'm a different politician. I don't have a blanket group of friends who are just politicians, and some people do, get a little too closely wedded to it. My best mate is still my best mate from high school, who came down and installed a hangover for me just a couple of weeks ago. He still lives in North Queensland, but it was my birthday, so he decided that I shouldn't wake up feeling as fresh as I normally do. That's what best mates do. And I keep a tight knit of mates who aren't in politics, and I think that keeps me real.
Your family history, we just talked about your mother. What is your history?
I'm really proud of it. My grandfather came to this country with not a dollar in his pocket, and he was about my age that I am now. So he was in Italy, and they were really poor, had a wife and 3 kids. And just imagine that. This guy rolled the dice because he heard of a land of opportunity, which was Queensland. He rolled the dice, left his family there for nearly 12 months because he needed to get the money to bring them over, and came to a country where he didn't speak the language, went to the cane fields of Ingham and just worked his tail off, and brought the family over a little after about 12 months. And my dad was 9 when he came here, and to my dad's credit, my grandfather worked hard and bought a little farm, and to my dad's credit, he's expanded that farm, and him and Mum still run it to this day. Thinks he's 30, my dad. They're still working in it. My sister still lives in the town, little town called Ingham. She's got a couple of businesses there. And my childhood was a great one. We worked hard, but it was a childhood where we saw reward for effort. Dad worked 7 days a week. Mum was always there supporting him. And both my sister and I have really good work ethos as a result of it. I've never worked a job, including as a journo, including as a young deli boy at Coles. I've never worked a job where I've got up in the morning and said, oh my God, I don't want to be there. I've always enjoyed working. I enjoy partying too. But I've always, well, I hope so. Yeah. But I've always enjoyed going and working because I do like people, and all of my jobs have had that connection with people. I even was, during uni holidays, I was a sales rep at a local better electrical store for a little while, and I loved that. I loved going in and talking to people and selling, and I enjoyed it.
I was going to say, it's meeting people,
exactly.
And it's something in my history, in my review of you, and also what you've just been talking about now. You are a people person, and you're into that grassroots localism, aren't you?
My wife hates going anywhere with me because inevitably I end up rolling up near somebody and sitting down and listening to their life story. And we were in Melbourne a couple of years ago when the world was normal and we all travelled. And she went to buy some, go to a shop, and she came back and she said, where have you been? I said, I spoke to him, he's got a small business around the corner and she's in this. And she said, you know you're not in Queensland, you don't have to be campaigning. I said, but I'm not campaigning. I love that. I love the interaction. When we were kids, we borrowed her grandfather's caravan and we went around Queensland. And everywhere I went, I stopped and I would do a story, a profile on somebody, and I would write it up and flicked it off to mags, and it helped pay for our trip. But more importantly, it helped me connect with people. I met a young family who had 2 kids, schooling them through distance education. Was in the worst drought. They're walking their cattle for days and days and days through a stock route to try and get them somewhere to keep them alive. They spent Christmas Day in an old shed, which was, that was their Christmas Day as they were walking these beasts through. That's a story. Yeah,
and these are the stories that often are not told, unless you have somebody like yourself who goes out there and discusses it and raises it.
That's the power of journalism. And to this day, you mentioned about thanks for coming on. Well, I take pleasure in doing it, and I feel very proud to be asked because, in a way, it gets me a chance to tell my story, but I can then hopefully be better as a representative in connecting with other people. Journalism's about that. Journalism's about sitting down and telling a story, and everyone's got one. I can assure you, there is no one who doesn't have something that is newsworthy in their life, and I love hearing people's stories.
I want to ask you something that probably wouldn't normally be newsworthy. What's the most embarrassing thing you've done? That you can tell us about, of course. Bit of a blunder, bit of a red-faced thing.
Oh, mate,
where your wife's gone, oh, what have you done?
No, I've been in politics for so long. My life is one big rolling reel of embarrassments. Stupid speeches where I've missed the mark. And you know what though? In the end, you learn from mistakes. And I got a great bit of advice from an uncle once, and he said, in life, there's 3 choices you can make. You can make the right decision, that's great. You can make the wrong decision, which isn't good, but you can rebuild, or you can make no decision. He said, and that's the only one you should never take. The option of not making a decision will always mean that you don't get progress. But if you make the right decision, you go forward, and if you make the wrong decision, provided that you take stock and then rebuild and go and look for that right decision, in the end, that is a decision that keeps on making you better and making you more complete. But if you sit down on the fence and you're paralysed, doing nothing, no decision is always the worst thing.
Some quality advice, and you've heard it on mynewsfeed.com.au. We also operate a couple of radio stations, Rebel FM and Breeze FM, and together we've got questions from our listeners and readers. Are you ready to answer some?
Provided they're not from my mates, yes.
The first one's from Brian from Springwood. Leading into last year's state election, the LNP had a public perception as a party with internal squabbling. Do you agree? And if so, are you doing anything to fix it?
Not only do I agree, it is the defining thing of my leadership, and I will live and die on how well we reform the party. and you can't sugarcoat it. We've been really poor in Queensland for a generation at winning elections and maintaining that. And a big part of it is we've had the back of house, the organisation, and the front of house, the elected officials, just haven't known their responsibilities. And that's not just about people, it's about knowing rights and respect. And I have put everything on the line to fix this. And I will succeed or fail based on that reform. So you've heard me talking a bit about it in recent times, and I have been upfront in the things that I want to see the party do. I want to see us look like a modern centre-right political movement. I want our candidates to come from a breadth of backgrounds, so we look and sound like Queenslanders. I want policies developed not through some backroom focus group out of my office. I want it developed by Queenslanders, and that's party members, but that's also people running businesses, people in community groups, people in sporting clubs. That's how you get a movement that looks and feels like a grassroots movement. And I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm prepared to roll the dice on it and put everything on the line. And people said to Wayne Goss in the mid-80s that he wouldn't be able to do it with the Labor Party that had been in opposition for a generation. To his credit, he did, and that led his political movement for a long period of success. They said it about David Cameron in the UK with the Tories. You know, they looked and sounded like a stuffy old party. He reformed them, and they'll say it about me now. And I'm getting people throw barbs all the time and say that you can't do it, but I'm up to it, and I intend to lead that reform.
It goes back to the advice that you were given earlier, doesn't it? And you've got to be happy that Lawrence Springborn putting up his hand to be party president.
Yeah, and again, I don't make things about individuals, and I never do. All I want is to know that the organisation can be lean, mean, fighting machine, and then we as elected officials need to be caring, compassionate, connecting with community. And I want to make sure that we have a different style of opposition. People know in me that if something is wrong and if the government does something that isn't up to standard, I'll be the first to call it out, but I'll also give my solution. And if they do something that's okay, I'll be the first to say, tick, job well done, because there's not enough of that in politics. And I want people to look in time and say, you know what, I think this guy has sorted his mob out, and it is time for a change, and Queensland should be under new management and it should be run properly, and I think he's the bloke that's worth a crack.
Our next question is from Rob of Ipswich. We go far and wide. Will the LNP be supporting the proposed solar tax for mum and pup solar energy generators who export solar energy to the national grid? Now, this is something which has come to the forefront just recently, in fact, that there's a proposed tax on households who generate electricity from their solar panels on the roof.
So, as I was saying, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but let me answer it by giving a few philosophical things, Scott. I hate tax, and I think Queensland doesn't have, and Australia doesn't have a problem with taxation. Or revenue, we've got enough of that. We have a problem with spending, and we've got to learn to live within our means the way that your listeners do at home. But there's a bigger thing, and that is philosophically, I hate moving goalposts, and I hate when people make a decision to invest in something knowing that there is a certain lot of conditions there, and then to have that changed, that makes me cross.
And I think that's what has a lot of people angry at the moment, because they did all of this
in good faith, right?
In good faith, that's right.
Yep, they invest in something, and that's why when it comes to things like superannuation, you can't move the goalposts, because the moment you do, people say, well, I'm not going to put it in there because I don't know what a government's going to do in 20 years' time. I might get out of bed one day and say I'm going to take 50%. So that's not right. You've got to give people certainty. Same in business. You have to give people who are looking to invest in Queensland the certainty to say, we're not going to wake up one morning with some crazy taxation or some crazy land use issues. I'm about certainty, and everything I do is I want people to see that I'm not going to be leading a government of high taxes. I'm not going to be leading a government of surprise. I'm not going to be leading a government that's reforming at 100 miles an hour, turning things upside down, inside out. It's going to be moderate, it's going to be reforming, but with decency and grace, and it's going to be for the long term.
So would it be something, this solar tax, something that you would look into?
Yeah, I'm very happy to, and if you give me the details, I'll even connect directly back with him once I've had a look.
Okay. From Browns Plains, Kath writes in saying, we are a Labor-dominated city. What action can you take to convince us to make a change?
By conducting myself in a way that you can be proud of. And I know that's a strange statement to make, being proud of a politician. But I just want to break the mould. I don't want us to look and sound like a mob of stuffy old men in top hats. And I don't want us to look and sound like the party of big business, because we're not. And I had an amazing chat with a young niece of mine who was saying to me, and she's a gifted young girl, wants to study medicine, she's 18, and she said, you know, you're perceived as being the party of big business. And I said, but that's not true. If anything, big business prefer the Labor Party because they can control, through deals with unions, they can control workforces a hell of a lot more than the people I support, who are small and family businesses, and the people who work in them, who want to have a go, who aspire to more. And she said, hey, I'm just giving you the perception. And you know what? She's right. I've got to change that. I've got to make people look and say, these guys, they are compassionate. They care about the environment. They're talking about aspirations for my kids to be able to own a home. That's what I want. Anyone who aspires to more, I want them to know that I'm on their side. And that might be, for someone, it might be to be the first person in their family to get off welfare and get a job. Go to the local meatworks and have a job. That person, in my mind, I align with their values as much as somebody who wants to take their company and start employing 150 Queenslanders. But I'm on their side too, because I want anyone who aspires for a little bit better, to work a little bit harder. I'm on their side. And that fundamentally is small and family businesses and the people they employ.
Judy from Browns Plains wants you on her side. She's written into us saying, what can you do to lower petrol and power costs? And if you can do that, I think you've got everybody on side.
Well, it's costs in general. So petrol, the only way you can lower petrol costs is removing excises. And I'm not going to sit here and tell porcupines and tell you that it's easy to remove taxes, because we got a big budget black hole at the moment in Queensland, and we have, long before coronavirus, this state economically was in trouble. Had both through unemployment, lack of infrastructure, debt out of control. So I'm not going to sit here and say for one moment. But I will talk about the ways that you can make things more affordable. And one of that ways is, she mentions power. We've got to stop gold plating networks. We've got to stop milking our generators dry and using them as a cash cow, and that then lowers prices for people. But it's everything. It's the cost of public transport. It's the cost for us to deliver infrastructure. We've got to get leaner at that, the way we do it, so we can deliver more for people. It's government running itself in a business-like fashion to deliver a good service for people. But that financial prudence should never come at the expense of services, and I can assure you I'm going to be focused on that. And when I look at ambulance ramping at Queensland at the moment and the pressure on our hospitals, when I look at not enough coppers and the youth crime issues that are around the place, when I look at people sitting in traffic, and there'll be people listening to this podcast right now who are stuck in traffic, as I was this morning when I drove back, not in peak hour.
Yeah, just after the rush hour and everything.
Exactly,
was chockers.
Still chockers.
Yeah.
People sit there and say, well, hang on, I want you, government, I want you to provide me a better lifestyle for me and my kids. So it's about financially being prudent and managing your money well so you can deliver a better service for people. We've got to move away, and when I say we, I mean my side of politics. The LNP has to move away from talking about the economy for the sake of the economy. We talk about the economy because it can provide things for people. A good economy allows you to invest in the environment to protect for generations. A good economy allows you to invest in a health service so that people don't have to wait to get a new set of dentures because of a system that is not managed properly. A good economy means that your curriculum can be cutting edge with the best technology so that education that you're proud of for your kids. A good economy allows you to put more coppers in place. Some better laws might be okay too, that doesn't cost anything. We've put forward a few suggestions on that, including restoring breach of bail for the Youth Justice Act. But a good economy allows you more coppers to be able to keep people safe. That's what I want to see.
You touched on public transport a couple of minutes ago, and that's the subject of Janet's question. She's in Logan Lee. Before the pandemic, I did a lot of air travel, but I find the cost of the train to Brisbane Airport to be more expensive than driving to Gold Coast Airport.
Yeah.
If you win the election, can you fix this? I mean, she's on the Logan Lee line.
Yeah, understood.
Direct.
And I travel quite a bit on that train service. So that last bit of the journey to the airport is where the big cost is. It's a commercial line. And we all have to weigh up exactly the choice she's making. So I live in the northern end of the coast, and sometimes exactly what Janet's saying is spot on. The cost of going to Brizzy, it's outweighed by that. What I can do is talk about public transport in general, and I don't think we've got it right on a number of fronts. And I think if you deliver the infrastructure at a cost-effective way, you can provide more services at a better price. And I'm not convinced that we've got our numbers right for public transport, both in cost and frequency. I've got constituents of mine, I'm on the northern Gold Coast, people who live in Hope Island who say, I would take a bus, absolutely, categorically, I'd take a bus tomorrow. But the bus service either doesn't exist or the frequency just isn't there. And if the frequency's not there, people won't use it. And I know that's chicken and egg, but at some stage you've got to take a plunge and you've got to try, and you've got to, as they say, build it and they will come.
So that's something you would address?
Yeah, absolutely. Public transport matters, but as does building roads. And I know there are people who say to me, because I do have a strong environmental conscience, and people say, well, why would you build roads if you care about the environment? Because it's about choice. And if you can have a good public service, a good public system service, people can be able to have that as an option. But there is still a demand for people who want to drive cars, and you don't penalise those people because they want to make that choice. And I'm committed to delivering better roads because that's time at home with your family, and that matters.
Our final question, bit of a quirky one, I have to admit. Anthony of Logan has written in. He says he's a gay man, wants to know if you're available. I'm sure it's a stitch up, but it's one of the questions that came in.
Anthony, better go to Specsavers. Good God, I haven't. I don't think I've.
You don't know how to answer that.
I don't think I've been called handsome since the mid-90s. But righto, good.
Well, let's talk about your personal life.
Sure.
You're not available, are you?
No. Good. No, Anthony, I'm married with a couple of kids, but now into my 40s, I'm still flattered, mate. Let me tell you, I'm still flattered.
Well, it's an opportunity for you to explore the swing voters.
Right,
maybe.
That's a different swinging, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Anthony. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
That's a fun one. All right, we'll finish up with the fast five now. Just
Cool.
a couple of hit and miss. It's a quick question, quick response.
Okay, Scotty, now I'm nervous. Here we go.
Okay, you've got every reason to be. You're from originally North Queensland.
Yes.
So if I said something to you like North Queensland Cowboys, what would your response be?
Oh, live for them.
Live for them.
Sat on the hill. I sat on the hill. This is supposed to be fast five. Do you mind if I just expand a bit?
We haven't even started yet.
Oh, good. Right. Wake the camo up, please. I sat on the hill. First game, 1995.
Yeah.
Turf had just been laid. I've been a die-hard Cowboys fan since game one, and I often, every day when I go to the gym, I will wear some form of Cowboys apparel, either a singlet or shorts or something. And you have no idea how much pressure I come under in a Gold Coast gym as an MP on the Gold Coast. Trader, what? And my answer is the only commodity worth anything in politics is loyalty.
Yes.
And I will barrack for the Cowboys until the day I die. And let me assure you, it's been a tough assignment in the last few years. It's been tough, but I'm in for the long haul.
At least we can say go Queensland.
Yes.
Yes.
Like there's
We'll find
no
that
tomorrow.
neutral ground there.
Like there's no tomorrow. Although I have a sneaking suspicion, as much as this hurts me, that I don't think anyone's going to be saying go Queensland in terms of the NRL season post semi-final. We mightn't have a Queensland side in the 8. Now that
it's not looking good.
that hurts me.
No.
So come on,
All right.
one of you, please.
Doesn't matter which one.
Yeah.
Just one. All right. You do need to make your answers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
As we get started with the
real
fast
quick.
five.
Okay,
The
so
first one.
So that's not a fast five.
That was just an example
That
of what
was-
not to do.
That was a slow 6.
Here you go.
Here we go. Fast
Here we
one. Let's go.
First one.
Yes.
Anastasia Palaszczuk.
Premier.
Regional news.
Essential but under siege.
The M1 through Logan City.
Absolute train wreck.
Lawrence Springborg.
Gentleman.
And finally, Anthony from Logan City.
Unavailable?
That's really racking your brain, isn't it?
That's good fun.
You've succeeded with the Fast Five. David Crisafulli, our special guest for Ask A Pollie from mynewsfeed.com.au. David, thanks again.
Thank you very much, Scott.